Why did everyone stop, laughing the moment she took one step forward? The sound inside Elite Arms had been a steady hum, metallic clicks, the soft murmur of conversations, the low thrum of fluorescent lights. Then a woman in her 50s walked in, and silence took the room like a gunshot. Her name was Vera Mitchell. 52 years old, silver-streaked hair pulled back in a no-nonsense knot, denim jacket faded at the elbows, sneakers scuffed by years of use. A canvas bag hung from her shoulder, worn soft at the seams, and her right hand trembled. Not wildly, not uncontrollably, just enough that people noticed. "Grandma, the knitting store across the street." The voice came from behind the counter. Derek, 20-something, slick hair, smug confidence that came from the safety of knowing he was being watched by a crowd. Laughter rippled through the store, that ugly, easy kind of laughter that needs no courage to start. Vera adjusted her bag, pretending not to hear, but her fingers clenched around the strap, whitening at the knuckles. She'd been called worse, much worse. Still the sting was there. It always was. "Look at her hands," someone whispered. "Can't even hold a coffee steady, let alone a rifle." Another chimed in, something about grandkids and memory care, and the laughter came again, louder now. 20 pairs of eyes, all pointed the same direction, all judging. And Vera, trembling hands and all, took another step. The laughter faltered, just for a breath. There was something in her stance, subtle, instinctive, that didn't fit the joke. The way her weight shifted, the silent precision of her footing. Soldiers recognized it before civilians ever did. In the far corner, an older man near the ammo rack straightened slightly, his posture changing without thought. But the moment passed. Derek leaned forward on the glass counter, grinning. "Ma'am, seriously, you're in the wrong place. This store's for serious shooters, not," he waved at her shaking hands, "whatever this is." He got the laugh he wanted. Vera didn't respond. Not yet. She just looked around the racks, the glass displays, the cameras in the ceiling corners, and cataloged everything. Every face, every angle, every possible exit. Years ago, she'd done the same thing in places that smelled of cordite and fear, instead of gun oil and aftershave. Now she was doing it again. Her voice, when it came, was calm. "Barrett M82A1 CQB variant, modified buffer spring, titanium firing pin." The laughter died so fast it was almost comical. For 2 long seconds, only the hum of the lights filled the space. Because what she'd said didn't come from any website or catalog. Those specs were classified. Derek blinked, then smirked harder, trying to recover. "Oh sure, Grandma's been watching YouTube. Cute. You read that in a Call of Duty forum." A few nervous chuckles followed, thinner now. A woman in heels, designer everything, clicked forward. "Honey, this isn't a museum. These guns are for people who actually know how to use them. Try the pawn shop down the street. They've got some nice antiques." The line landed. The crowd giggled. And in that moment, Vera's right hand lifted to her glasses case. The tremor caught the light, revealing a faint circular scar on her wrist, old, healed, but too perfectly round to be accidental. Bullet wound. Clean exit. Jake, the veteran by the ammo display, noticed. His breath hitched just slightly. Vera slid on her glasses. "Serial number should start with CQB 47, she said softly. "Barrel length 20 inches, not 29. Modified mag, 7 rounds for balance." Behind the counter, Robert Chen, the manager, had just stepped out from his office. Marine, retired. 40-something, buzz cut gone gray at the sides. He froze because the woman's words weren't guesses. They were memories. Derek saw Robert's face pale but misread it completely. "Hey, boss, we got ourselves a Wikipedia warrior here. Grandma thinks she knows more than the pros." He turned toward the back. "Security, escort this lady out before she hurts herself." No one moved. Robert wasn't calling security. He was staring at Vera. The tremor in her hands wasn't random. Jake recognized the rhythm. He'd seen it before: combat tremor. Nerve damage from heavy recoil, sustained fire, too many hours behind a .50 cal. He whispered it, barely loud enough for anyone to hear. That's not Parkinson's, that's recoil trauma. Derek spun, glaring. Oh great, another expert. What is this, a veterans convention? But the confidence was slipping from his voice, because the energy in the room had changed. Mockery was giving way to unease. Vera's quiet steadiness unnerved them. She didn't argue, didn't defend herself, just stood there like a mountain pretending to be a hill. Finally she pointed, trembling finger steady in its path. Third row, second from the left, that's the one. Derek barked a laugh. You want the 50 grand showpiece? Sure. Let's all watch Grandma pretend she's shopping for real guns. Robert didn't answer. His gaze followed her finger. The rifle she'd pointed to wasn't even listed for sale, an experimental prototype kept only as a display. The fact that she'd picked it out of dozens by sight alone sent a chill down his spine. More people entered, phones came out, lenses blinked. Derek saw the audience grow and turned it into a performance. Let's have some fun. Hey Grandma, you got your social security check with you. Maybe you can afford half a bullet. The crowd laughed again, but it was uneasy laughter this time, like laughter in church. Vera said nothing. Instead, she reached into her pocket and pulled out a coin. Small, worn smooth from years of handling. Robert saw it first and went still. A challenge coin, not a collector's trinket. This one bore a unit insignia that hadn't existed officially for 20 years. Because the government had erased it. Just open the case, Vera said quietly, please. Something in her tone, the calm authority of command, made Derek comply, even as he kept talking, still trying to sound in control. Sure thing, lady. Let's make your fantasy come true. As he unlocked the display, Vera set her bag on the counter and pulled out a brace, a sleek carbon fiber wrist stabilizer, fitted with micro servos. She attached it in practiced motions, tightening each strap until the tremor steadied to a controlled vibration. Jake recognized it immediately. NASA tech, he murmured. Zero-G stabilizer, adapted for snipers with nerve damage. Derek snorted. Nice toy, arthritis treatment, huh? He didn't see Robert flinch. The rifle came out of the case, a black metal beast of precision and history. Vera reached for it, her fingers trembling against the grip. The crowd held its breath. She lifted it one-handed. And something changed. The shaking didn't stop, it transformed. The pattern became deliberate, part of her rhythm. Her body remembered what her nerves had forgotten. She ran her hand along the barrel, eyes half closed. Firing pin springs off by 0.3 millimeters. You'll get a misfire at -15 Celsius. Robert blinked, grabbed his inspection tools and checked. She was right. Exactly right. He looked up slowly. Ma'am, where did you? I'm calling the cops, Derek cut in. This is harassment, touching merchandise she can't afford, attempted theft. Vera smiled faintly, the kind of smile that holds too much history. Go ahead, she said. Ask for Captain Morrison. Tell him Vera Mitchell says hello. The name hit the air like a bullet. Jake's eyes widened. Captain James Morrison, the 212th. Robert's hand tightened around the rifle. He knew that name, and suddenly he knew her. But Derek was already on the phone, babbling to the dispatcher, painting her as some unstable old woman. Robert, meanwhile, lifted the store's internal handset. Sir, he said quietly, you need to see this. No, not tomorrow, now she's here. Upstairs, the store's AI security system cross-checked her face against its federal watch list access. And something deep in that encrypted database turned red. Downstairs, the crowd's mood shifted again. An older man in the corner stepped forward, eyes locked on Vera. His voice shook. Holy Mary, Mother of God, QSI-7. Silence. Even Derek stopped mid-sentence. Jake repeated the words slowly. Quantico sniper instructors, the ghosts who train the trainers. The phrase hung there, half legend, half myth. Robert disappeared into his office, returning with an old leather logbook. He flipped through pages yellowed with age until he found a photo. A graduation ceremony, 1998. A younger woman stood in the center, gray eyes unmistakable. The caption read, Chief Instructor V. Mitchell, Commendation for Training Excellence. Derek tried to laugh. That could be anyone. Shut up, Robert snapped. Just shut up. Phones were still recording. Faces had changed, from mockery to awe to shame. Vera stood there calm amid the storm. She lived this pattern before. The disbelief, the dawning recognition. It never got easier, but she'd learned to let truth speak for itself. One shot, she said softly. 500 meters, then I'll leave. Her tone was steady, final. Robert hesitated, then nodded. Clear the range. What? Derek sputtered. You can't be serious, she'll hurt someone. After she takes the shot, Robert said simply. The crowd moved like a tide toward the range door, phones still raised, eyes wide. Inside the long firing tunnel, Vera knelt slowly at the line, knees creaking. The distance marker glowed red, 500 meters. At the far end, a tiny silver coin hung from fishing line, swaying slightly. No one had ever hit it. Derek scoffed. Olympic shooters miss that. This is going to be pathetic. But no one laughed with him now. Vera adjusted her scope with trembling fingers. The tremor synced with her breathing. Inhale, exhale, pulse. She pulled out a pair of worn leather gloves, cracked with age, molded perfectly to her grip. The room went quiet. She lined up the shot. Exhaled. Paused. Crack. The sound tore through the air. The coin rang like a bell. Dead center. Gasps filled the range. She didn't stop, adjusted again, fired. The coin split clean in two. Then with eyes closed, she whispered, one more. The third shot disintegrated what was left, nothing but swaying fishing line. The silence afterward felt holy. No one moved. Even Derek's phone slipped from his hand. And then footsteps thundered from the stairwell. The door burst open. A man in a $1,000 suit ran in out of breath, face flushed with urgency. The CEO himself, Marcus Bradford. He took one look at Vera, at the shattered target, and stopped cold. Instructor Mitchell, he breathed. Then before anyone could process it, the CEO of Elite Arms, a man known for commanding rooms, not bowing in them, dropped to one knee. Ma'am, he said, voice thick. Cadet Bradford, class of '98, you saved my life in Kabul. The room exploded, not in noise but in disbelief. Every mocking face turned pale. Every phone came up again, this time recording a moment they knew the world would talk about. And Vera Mitchell, the woman they'd laughed at minutes ago, just stood there, trembling hands steady on the rifle, gray eyes soft with memory. She didn't speak right away. When she did, it was a whisper meant for no one in particular. People see what they want to see. Then quieter still. But truth has perfect aim. Why did a man like Marcus Bradford fall to one knee in front of a trembling old woman? The question rippled through the room like a shockwave. Phones froze mid-record, breath caught in dozens of throats. Even the hum of the air vents seemed to stop. Vera didn't move. She just watched him, the 6'4" CEO of Elite Arms, a man whose handshake was said to decide million-dollar contracts, kneeling, his voice trembling, calling her ma'am. It had been years since she'd heard that tone. Reverent, grateful, haunted. Cadet Bradford, she said softly, you made it home. Marcus looked up, eyes glassy. Because of you. The words carried the weight of 2 decades. the kind of debt that never fades, even under success and time. And in that instant, the hierarchy in the room inverted. The crowd, once laughing, now watched in quiet reverence. Robert, the manager, stood frozen behind the counter, still holding the inspection tool he'd used to verify her impossible accuracy. Jake, the veteran, stood straighter than he had in years, his posture unconsciously slipping into attention. Even Derek, phone still in hand, 911 operator faintly audible on the line, couldn't find a single word. Vera finally exhaled, the sound soft but steady. "Stand up, Marcus. You know I never liked the formalities." But Marcus didn't rise. He stayed kneeling, the memory too strong to let go. "Ma'am," he said, voice breaking, "you saved my life in Kabul, pulled me out from that burning convoy when everyone else had written us off." The story crashed over the room like a wave. Phones came up again, but this time the lenses trembled. This wasn't entertainment anymore, it was witnessing. Vera's gaze softened. "You were just a kid," she said. 18, 19 maybe. You wouldn't stop shouting orders even with a bullet in your leg." A faint teary laugh escaped him. "You remembered." "I remember all my students." Her voice faltered slightly, and that pause, that tiny, unguarded crack, made the room ache with something unnameable. Respect, guilt, maybe both. Then, for the first time since the confrontation began, Marcus stood. He turned, facing the stunned audience. His tone changed, not as CEO, not as businessman, but as soldier. "This woman," he began, his voice carrying across the silent range, "is Chief Instructor Vera Mitchell. Phantom Mother, Quantico Sniper School, 25 years of service. The woman who trained me, who trained the people who trained SEAL Team 6. Murmurs filled the air, half disbelief, half awe. The phrase Phantom Mother spread like fire. Marcus continued, his tone growing harder, heavier. "The tremor you all mocked, that's nerve damage from dragging 6 wounded Marines out of a burning Humvee in Iraq. She stayed under fire for 45 minutes with a separated shoulder and a damaged rifle, and saved every single one of them." Silence fell again. It was absolute. Even the woman in the Gucci heels, the one who'd called Vera honey, had tears tracking through her foundation. Jake swallowed hard, his veteran's mask cracking. "Jesus," he whispered, "all this time we had no idea." Robert set the inspection tool down slowly, his hands shaking for the first time. "Ma'am," he murmured, "it's an honor." Vera gave a small, tired smile. "It's just a job, or it was." But Marcus wasn't finished. He turned toward Derek, who stood pale and rigid near the counter. "You," he said quietly, voice now like steel. "You mocked her. You laughed while she stood there, calm, patient, letting you humiliate her." Derek swallowed. "Sir, I didn't know." "That's the point," Marcus snapped. "You didn't know, you didn't ask. You saw shaking hands and gray hair and you assumed weakness. You judged before you understood." He turned to Robert. "He's done, effective immediately." The words hit like a verdict. Vera lifted a trembling hand. "Marcus, wait." He looked at her, half surprise, half disbelief. "Ma'am," after everything he said. "He made a mistake," she said quietly, "and he just learned something he'll never forget." Marcus frowned. "That doesn't erase disrespect." "No," she agreed, "but neither does revenge teach respect. Let him walk his own road. Consequences find us all in time." The room stayed silent for a long moment. Finally, Marcus nodded. "If that's your wish." "It's not a wish," Vera said. "It's mercy." The word hung there. And somehow it felt heavier than any reprimand. Derek's mouth opened maybe to apologize, but nothing came out. He just stood there, small and wordless, in front of the woman he'd ridiculed. Vera turned to the rest of the crowd. Her voice was soft, but every syllable carried. "Sometimes the most dangerous person in the room is the one you overlook. Strength doesn't always wear muscle or swagger. Sometimes it trembles, sometimes it limps, but it's still strength. No one dared speak. A woman near the back, the same one who had been live streaming the confrontation, lowered her phone completely. Her voice was barely a whisper. "I said terrible things," she murmured. "I judged you. I'm sorry." Vera's response was simple. "Then don't say sorry. Do better next time." And just like that, the tension in the room broke, not with noise but with quiet, collective shame. Marcus took a step closer, lowering his voice. "Ma'am, I owe you an apology too, for what happened here. This was my store, my responsibility." Vera smiled faintly. "No, Marcus, people see what they expect to see. I've had a lifetime of that. Gray hair, tremor, civilian clothes, they write a story before they even hear your voice. It's not your fault, it's habit." Jake finally spoke, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "Ma'am, I served 2 tours in Afghanistan. I should have recognized it the second you took that stance. The way you scanned the room, the way you breathed before that first shot, that's training. The real kind." Robert nodded beside him. "The kind you don't get from YouTube." Vera chuckled softly. "There's a rhythm to it, not just in shooting, in people. You read them like you read the wind. You wait for the still moment and then you act." Her hand trembled as she unstrapped the carbon brace, laying it gently on the counter. Without the support, the shaking grew more visible, but somehow it didn't look weak anymore. It looked earned, like a scar that still spoke of survival. Marcus gestured toward her brace. "You still shoot." "When I need to," she said simply. "Or when someone forgets that old dogs still bite." That drew a few hesitant laughs, respectful ones this time. The mood had shifted again, from shame to reverence. Someone near the back whispered, "Is it true? You wrote the sniper training manual." Vera shrugged. "Parts of it. The rest was written by ghosts I served with." The phrase settled deep in the air. Ghosts I served with. You could hear the history in it, the kind that never fully leaves you. And just when it felt like the weight of revelation had finally settled, the world outside began to intrude again. A notification tone, a phone buzzing, the ping of a message. Then from one corner of the room, a voice trembling with disbelief. "She's trending." Heads turned, screens lit up. Phantom Mother was climbing across feeds, spreading from one live stream to thousands of shares, military forums, veteran groups, news snippets. In minutes, her name was everywhere. Vera blinked at the sudden glow of screens. "Lord help me," she muttered under her breath. "That's the last thing I need." Marcus smiled ruefully. "You're not a secret anymore, ma'am." "Never was," she said. "People just stopped paying attention." The moment might have ended there, a quiet resolution, a lesson neatly wrapped. But fate rarely leaves things tidy. Because when you spend a lifetime in shadows, eventually, shadows come looking for you. The front door opened again. The kind of purposeful motion that shifted air. The sound of boots, not casual ones but issued. Vera turned before anyone else could. A woman stood in the doorway, mid-60s, short gray hair, eyes that had seen too much and still missed nothing. Uniform immaculate, rank insignia gleaming under the lights. "Instructor Mitchell," she said formally, "we need to talk." The crowd stiffened, phones rose again. Vera's expression didn't change, but her pulse did. She knew that voice, that tone. "Hello, Patricia," she said quietly. "It's been a while." "Too long," said Colonel Patricia Hawkins, stepping forward with a sealed envelope in hand. 12 years since you vanished after the review board cleared you. We looked everywhere." The audience could feel it, a new current, colder than before. The air changed from reverence to tension, the kind that comes before secrets being dragged into light. Vera sighed, half amused, half weary. "I didn't vanish, I retired." "You retired without notice, ceremony, or a word to anyone. You disappeared," Patricia said, her voice sharp with both authority and something more personal. "Hurt. Do you have any idea what that did to your students, to me? Vera smiled faintly. You did fine without me. That's not the point, Patricia said, holding out the envelope. This has been waiting 12 years. Your final commendation, the one you refused to accept. Vera didn't move to take it. You know I never cared for medals. It's not for you, Patricia replied. It's for the 3,000 who passed through your hands, the ones who learned what strength really meant. For a long time, neither spoke. Then Vera exhaled, a long, slow breath that carried the ghosts of years. I appreciate the gesture, she said finally, but something tells me you didn't come all this way just to hand me paperwork. Patricia nodded grimly. You're right, there's another reason, a recent one. She took out her phone, swiped, and turned the screen toward Vera. This came through official channels an hour ago, from Prague. Vera froze. 2 syllables Prague, and the tremor in her hands changed rhythm. Patricia's voice lowered, though everyone could still hear it. They found something, documents, photos. They're asking for you specifically. The crowd was utterly still now. Even Marcus, who'd commanded rooms and survived combat, looked suddenly uneasy. He knew that name, Prague. What did they find? Vera asked quietly. Patricia's jaw tightened. Something that suggests the Koslov incident wasn't what we thought it was, that one of the 5 might have survived. Vera's lips parted barely, her voice dropped to a whisper. Thompson. Patricia nodded once. They want you to confirm it, 48 hours. And in that moment, you could feel it, the shift. What had started as a story about humiliation and respect was becoming something larger, deeper. The ghosts were stirring again. Vera closed her eyes briefly, steadying her breath. When she opened them, there was steel there, the kind that never dulls, no matter how much time has passed. If he's alive, she said softly, then someone's got a lot of explaining to do. The tremor in her hands returned, not weakness this time. Anticipation. Why did the tremor in her hands stop when she heard that one word, Prague? For 20 years, Vera had trained herself to live with the rhythm, that constant vibration beneath her skin, like a metronome of memory she couldn't shut off. But in that instant, when Colonel Patricia Hawkins said the word, it stilled, the way the sea stills before a storm. The name carried ghosts. Prague, Vera repeated softly, tasting the syllables like ash. I thought we buried that chapter. We did, Patricia said, but apparently the past refuses to stay dead. The words drew the entire room into stillness. Even the audience that had been filming slowly lowered their phones, as if instinct told them they were trespassing on something sacred or dangerous. Marcus glanced between them, brow furrowed. Ma'am, with respect, what's going on? Patricia looked around the room at the customers, the employees, the phones still glinting like tiny eyes, and hesitated. This isn't the place. Vera's voice cut through, quiet but commanding. It is now. Whatever this is, you brought it into daylight, so let's finish it here. There was authority in her tone, the kind that comes from years of command, from standing in deserts where orders were carved into sand and blood. Patricia hesitated, then exhaled slowly. Fine, but everyone here should understand that what I'm about to say is classified. No one left. No one even breathed. She took a step forward, setting the sealed envelope aside on the counter. The Koslov incident, 1999. Official record says 6 operatives went in. 1 came out. You. Vera didn't flinch. That part's true. The part that isn't, Patricia continued, is that one of those operatives, Sergeant David Thompson, might still be alive. A ripple ran through the crowd. Confusion, disbelief, a few gasps. Marcus frowned. That's impossible, that explosion was recorded as fatal, Vera finished for him, and I saw it with my own eyes. Fire, collapse, structural failure. Thompson was inside when it went down. Then explain this. Patricia turned her phone screen around again, a photo grainy with zoom and time. A man in his late 40s, salt and pepper beard, walking through a crowded market. Same jawline, same scar above the left brow. Taken 2 weeks ago, Patricia said. Eastern Europe, facial match, 97.8%, Thompson. Vera stared at it for a long time. Her heartbeat slowed, then accelerated, the tremor creeping back into her fingers. Who took this? Interpol, Patricia said. Crosscheck came through military intelligence. He's working under a different name, freelance security, no paper trail. But the face, she sighed. The face doesn't lie. The room felt smaller suddenly. Walls closing in. Air thick with unspoken questions. Marcus spoke first. If that's true, then why do they need her? Because she's the only one who saw the mission up close, Patricia said. The only one who knows what really happened in that building. Vera looked up slowly. You want me to go back? Patricia nodded. They're assembling a task team. They need your insight, your memory of the layout, the operation, the players. You're the key. Vera gave a dry laugh. At my age with these hands. Patricia's reply was immediate. With that mind and that instinct, both of which are still sharper than anyone I've got under command. Silence. The crowd didn't dare interrupt, but you could feel the collective pulse, curiosity giving way to awe, awe shifting toward unease. This wasn't just a story anymore. It was a prelude. Vera looked down at her trembling fingers, flexing them. If Thompson's alive, then it means one of two things. Either he was taken or he switched sides. Patricia's eyes met hers. Exactly. The air in the room thickened. A quiet, unseen pressure pressed against everyone's chest. Jake, the veteran, finally spoke. Ma'am, if I may, you think he betrayed the team? Vera didn't answer right away. Her gaze drifted toward the floor, the rifle on the counter, the bullet scars beneath her sleeve. You don't get to that point by thinking in black and white, she said finally. You just live long enough to know that sometimes survival and betrayal wear the same uniform. Marcus looked between them, his CEO mask slipping, replaced by something more human, the soldier he once was. What happens now? Patricia straightened. Now she comes with me. But before she could finish, a soft chime sounded from the counter, the AI security console still active from earlier, its display flashing alert. Unauthorized access. Everyone turned. Robert frowned. That's impossible, I didn't trigger anything. The screen scrolled rapidly, lines of code flickering, face scans running in real time. Then the voice, calm, digital, unfeeling, spoke. Facial match confirmed. Access origin, military records archive breach, 92 days prior. The room froze. Wait, what breach? Marcus asked. Patricia's hand went immediately to her sidearm. Pause the system, now. Robert's hands flew across the keyboard, but the AI kept talking. Partial match, 81% confidence, subject present. Then the image appeared on the screen, a live feed from the store camera. Zoomed in on Tyler Rodriguez, the young man who'd apologized to Vera earlier. His face drained of color. Me, he stammered. No, that can't be right. Patricia raised a hand, her voice sharpened. Everyone stepped back. No, Tyler said quickly, backing up toward the ammo aisle. You don't understand, I didn't do anything wrong. Vera's voice, calm and low, cut through the panic. Tyler, look at me. He did, eyes wide, terrified, desperate. I swear I didn't know it was restricted. I just wanted to see my father's records, that's all. The name hit like a soft explosion. Your father, Vera asked carefully, what was his name? Roberto Rodriguez, he said, voice cracking. He was in your program, trained under you in '97. Vera's chest tightened. The name pulled at something buried deep. Roberto Rodriguez, quiet, focused, brilliant spotter. Killed in Bosnia, at least. That's what the report had said. Patricia's hand still hovered near her holster. You hacked a classified database, son. That's not curiosity, that's a federal offense. I didn't hack it, Tyler protested. I just used credentials from my dad's old drive. They still worked. I just wanted to know who he was, what he did. The files were so empty, all redacted, nothing but blank pages. I had to know. The tremor in Vera's hand softened as she stepped forward. Patricia, stand down. Vera. I said stand down. For a heartbeat, it was like watching rank itself bend. Patricia hesitated, then lowered her hand. Vera faced Tyler. You looked for your father, that's not a crime, it's human. What did you find? Tears welled up in his eyes. Not much, just commendations, notes about advanced training, something about QSI experimental. Then it locked me out. After that, I got a warning email, but it looked automated. I didn't think, he stopped, voice breaking. I didn't think it mattered. It mattered, Patricia said grimly. Those files are tied to classified training protocols. Tyler swallowed. Then why did they leave them open? No one had an answer for that. The silence stretched, heavy and uneasy, until Vera spoke again. Patricia, if the system recognized him, it's because those archives were connected to my roster. He wasn't breaking in. He was looking for family. Patricia frowned. The breach triggered intelligence protocols. Someone did access restricted intel, if it wasn't him. Then someone used his access, Vera said, which means whoever's behind Prague knew how to find the right bait. The colonel's face darkened as realization sank in. They traced him to get to you. And there it was, the connection. The tremor in Vera's hand wasn't just nerves anymore. It was instinct. The old, bone-deep sense that something far bigger was moving in the shadows. Tyler's voice cracked again. I didn't mean to. I know, Vera interrupted gently, but the fact that you're here means they knew where to send the storm. She turned to Patricia. We need to move now. Patricia nodded sharply, already pulling out her secure communicator. I'll alert the convoy. But Vera stayed still for a moment, scanning the faces around her, the same crowd that had mocked her hours earlier. Now, those same faces looked to her for answers, for calm, for something steady in the swirl of confusion. She took a deep breath, her voice quiet but clear. Listen to me. Every single person in this room is part of this story now. What you saw today, every frame, every word matters. Not because of me, but because truth rarely stays hidden forever. Her eyes flicked toward Tyler, whose shoulders shook with fear. And because sometimes the people looking for answers end up finding more than they were ready for. Patricia touched her shoulder, the car waiting. Vera nodded, then turned back to Marcus. Keep the footage safe. Don't release it yet. Too many eyes are watching. You'll have everything you need, ma'am, Marcus said firmly. Whatever this is, you're not facing it alone. Vera smiled faintly. We never are, we just forget who's beside us. She reached for her bag, slipping the old photograph inside, the one from Prague. The edges were worn soft, the image fading. 5 faces. One gone, one maybe not. As she adjusted the strap over her shoulder, her hands trembled again, the rhythm steady as a heartbeat. Robert stepped closer, almost without realizing it. Ma'am, are you really going back? Vera glanced at him. It's not about going back. It's about finishing what never ended. She started for the door, Patricia falling in beside her. But before stepping outside, she looked back one last time, at the crowd, the counter, the shattered coin still lying on the range floor. Remember this, she said. Strength isn't in the hands. It's in the choice of what those hands do when they're shaking. Then she was gone. The door closed behind her, and the room seemed to exhale. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Jake, the veteran, said softly, You ever get the feeling we just watched history breathe? Robert nodded, still staring at the door. No, he said quietly. I think we just watched it wake up. Outside in the gray afternoon light, two black SUVs idled by the curb. Patricia opened the rear door of one and gestured for Vera to get in. But before she did, Vera turned to her. "Tell me the truth," she said. "If Thompson's alive, what do they really want me to do?" Patricia hesitated. "Find him. And if he's not who he used to be." Patricia's jaw tightened. "Then you do what you've always done, what no one else can." Vera's eyes were steady now, calm despite the tremor. "You mean finish it?" Patricia didn't answer. She didn't need to. Why did the ride to the debrief feel longer than the 25 years she'd spent waiting for it? The black SUV hummed down the freeway, rain streaking the tinted windows in thin, restless lines. City lights smeared across the glass, 1,000 blurred reflections of a world that had moved on without her. In the driver's seat, Patricia said nothing. Neither did Vera. The silence between them wasn't awkward. It was heavy, the kind of silence only soldiers could share. The kind built from years of unspoken memory and the ghosts that came with them. Outside, thunder rolled like distant artillery. Vera's hand trembled in her lap, the rhythmic, familiar motion that had once betrayed her, then become her compass. She stared at it absently, at the faint scars that traced her skin like faded constellations. Each one had a story, each one a lesson in pain, endurance, and consequence. Patricia finally broke the silence. "You still get the tremor when you're calm." Vera gave a faint smile. "It's the only time it shows. When I'm angry, it disappears. When I'm focused, it obeys." "That's not how tremors are supposed to work." "No," Vera said softly, "but soldiers aren't supposed to outlive their ghosts either." The colonel didn't answer. The road curved sharply, and the city gave way to industrial sprawl. Warehouses, floodlights, fences topped with wire. They approached a gated complex marked only by a faded sign, Federal Logistics Depot 47C, a front for something else entirely. Two guards stepped forward, scanning their badges, checking the undercarriage, running a mirror sweep. Then the barrier lifted and they were through. Patricia guided the SUV into an underground tunnel. The concrete swallowed sound, the world above dissolving into a low hum of engines and security systems. At the end of the tunnel, a set of steel doors hissed open. "Briefing room 6, Patricia said. "They're waiting." Vera exhaled. "They always are." They stepped out into a space that smelled faintly of cold air, coffee, and secrets. The kind of place where truth came with clearance codes. A handful of people sat at the table, analysts, officers, two civilians who didn't belong but wore expressions of quiet authority. Screens glowed along the wall, a digital river of classified data flowing across them. The man at the head of the table stood as they entered. "Ms. Mitchell," he said, "thank you for coming." "I didn't," Vera replied evenly. "You came for me." A ripple of tension. The man smiled thinly. "Fair enough. Director Allen, Joint Intelligence Oversight. We're operating under Section 12, full classification. You understand the terms." "I wrote the terms," Vera said dryly. Patricia hid a small smirk. The director didn't. He gestured to the screen. "Let's start simple. What do you remember from Prague, December 1999? For a moment Vera said nothing. Her eyes drifted toward the screen where an image flickered: snow, a dimly lit street, the outline of a crumbling warehouse. Then her voice came, low and steady. "6 of us were sent in. Objective, intercept an arms transaction tied to a rogue cell. Intel said low risk. Surveillance confirmed minimal hostiles. We breached at 200. Her tone shifted, her breathing slower now, slipping back into rhythm. Inside, it was wrong from the start. No weapons, no cash, just equipment, computers, data terminals, and the bodies. "Bodies?" one analyst asked. Vera nodded. "Already cold. Locals, bystanders maybe, but we didn't kill them." The room grew still. I called for extraction. Command denied. Ordered us to secure the files and stay put until morning. That's when the explosion hit. I remember heat, debris, metal tearing through bone. Thompson was on my left. He pushed me down behind cover just before the second blast. After that, she exhaled. I woke up in a field hospital in Stuttgart. 5 names on a casualty report. 1 survivor, me. The analyst scribbled notes. You never saw who triggered the explosion. No, but it wasn't the enemy. The detonation pattern was internal, shaped, charged, directional. Someone wanted to erase the evidence. Director Allen's tone was careful. Evidence of what? Vera's gaze hardened. That's the question no one ever let me ask. Patricia shifted in her chair. We've re-examined the case files. Half the documentation's missing. The rest is sanitized. If Thompson survived, he might have been taken by whoever staged the blast. Or working for them, Allen added quietly. Vera's voice turned flat. Thompson wasn't a traitor, he was a soldier, loyal. I'd stake my life on that. Allen folded his hands. You already did. For a moment, neither spoke. The rain outside had turned heavier, distant but constant, like the static of fate replaying itself. Then one of the civilians spoke. A woman, maybe early 40s, composed but uneasy. Ms. Mitchell, the footage from the gun store, it's gone viral. Millions of views. The hashtag Phantom Mother has become a rallying symbol. Veterans, civilians, even international outlets are amplifying it. That kind of attention complicates your reactivation. Vera smiled faintly. So now I'm a PR risk. You're an icon, the woman corrected, and that makes you unpredictable. Icons don't bleed, Vera said. I still do. The room fell silent again. Patricia leaned forward. We're not here to exploit you, Vera. We're here because this new evidence changes everything we thought we knew. Prague wasn't a failure, it was a cover-up. Vera looked at her sharply. Whose? That's what we're trying to find out. The director tapped a key, and a new image appeared on the screen, the same photo Patricia had shown earlier. Thompson, older now, standing in a crowded market. But this time the frame expanded, revealing 2 figures behind him. One in civilian clothing, one wearing a uniform with no insignia. Recognize either of them? Allen asked. Vera studied the faces. One was blurred. The other, the uniformed one, was sharper, familiar in a way that made her stomach twist. No, she said finally. But the posture, shoulders back, weight evenly distributed, that's training Quantico level, one of ours. That's our concern, Allen said. Whoever he is, he's using old field protocols, ones you developed. Vera's jaw tightened. Then he was one of my students. Patricia's eyes flicked to her. You trained hundreds. 3,000, Vera said softly, but only 12 knew those specific patterns. Allen nodded toward the screen. Then we narrow it to 12. A quiet murmur filled the room, names being typed, records cross-referenced. One of the analysts frowned. Wait, this can't be right. Allen turned. What is it? The facial match, the analyst said. It's not 12, it's 1. He tapped a key. The screen changed again. The blurred face sharpened, resolving into someone else entirely. Patricia went still. Vera's breath caught. The man beside Thompson wasn't an operative she'd trained. It was Brigadier General Harlan Keene, the same man who had signed the Koslov mission authorization in 1999. Vera's voice was quiet but edged with steel. He's dead. Allen shook his head. Officially, yes, died in 2005, but this footage is 2 weeks old. Vera leaned back, the tremor in her hands rising again. Then the cover-up didn't end with Prague. It started there. The revelation hung in the air like smoke. Allen folded his arms. That's why we need you. You're the only link left alive who can identify how deep this goes. If Keene's alive, or if someone's using his identity, we have to know. Patricia's voice was quieter now. "And if it's him, Vera, then we're not dealing with a ghost. We're dealing with treason." The room went silent again. Then Vera said, "When do we leave?" Alan looked at her. "You're agreeing." Vera smiled thinly. "I never said I was. I just needed to know what I'm walking into." Patricia leaned forward. "You don't owe them this, you know, after everything they buried, after what it cost you." Vera's gaze softened. "Patricia, I trained them. I owe it to the ones who didn't come home." The colonel's eyes glistened. "You'll need a team." Vera nodded. "Then pick the ones who can follow orders and keep their conscience." Alan gestured to one of the analysts. "Prepare the activation orders, priority clearance, Operation Glasslight." The name landed hard. Patricia turned to Vera. "You know what that means, right? No media, no contact, total blackout." Vera smiled faintly, just like old times. But even as she said it, her thoughts were somewhere else, in a ruined warehouse outside Prague, in the flash of fire that still lived behind her eyelids, in the faces of the people who hadn't made it out. Rodriguez, Chen, Morgan, Petrov, Thompson. One may be alive, four still whispering through her sleep. She stared down at her trembling hands and whispered, "Let's finish it." Hours later, the debriefing concluded. The team dispersed, the files locked away, the world above continuing in blissful ignorance. But as Vera sat alone in the dim room, something on the table caught her eye, a small folder left behind by accident. It bore a seal she hadn't seen in 25 years. QSI Archive, eyes only. Her breath caught, she opened it. Inside, a single page. Project COSLOV. Mission failure status classified. Subject VMITCHLL. Recommendation: termination of program. Note: 1 surviving agent compromised. Containment advised. She stared at it, her pulse thudding in her ears. Her name, her file, and the word compromised. For a long time she didn't move. Then she closed the folder, slid it back where she'd found it, and whispered under her breath, "So that's what you called survival." As she stood, Patricia re-entered quietly. "You ready?" Vera turned, eyes clear, voice calm. "I've been ready since the day they tried to bury me." Patricia hesitated, then handed her something, the envelope from earlier. "You might want this after all." Vera looked at it. "What's in it?" "Your final commendation," Patricia said, "and a letter from Thompson." The tremor stopped. For a moment, the world did too. Vera took the envelope, weighing it like a weapon. "Then I suppose it's time," she said quietly, "to hear from the dead." Why did her hand stop trembling when she touched the envelope? It was thin, lighter than she expected. No medals, no ribbons, no ceremony. Just a plain, beige packet sealed with government tape and time. The edges were yellowed, the corners creased from years in some forgotten drawer. And her name, V. Mitchell, written in handwriting she hadn't seen in 25 years. Thompson's. Patricia stood quietly by the door, watching as Vera sat down at the steel table, fingers tracing the edge of the envelope. "You sure you want to open that now?" Patricia asked softly. Vera didn't look up. "If I wait, it'll haunt me. If I open it, it already has." She peeled the seal back slowly, the sound of tearing paper echoing too loud in the small room. Inside were two things. A single, folded letter and a faded photo of their unit, taken in front of the half-collapsed hangar in Prague, just days before everything went to hell. They were all smiling in that picture. Young, exhausted, proud, the kind of pride that comes from believing in the mission, before you learn how fragile belief can be. Vera's breath caught as she unfolded the paper. The handwriting was unmistakable, slanted, impatient, the ink pressed too hard into the page. "V. If you're reading this, it means one of two things: I'm dead, or I've finally done something stupid enough to make you come looking. Either way, you'd be the one to find it. You always were." First, I need you to know I didn't betray them. Not the team. Not you. What happened in Prague wasn't the mission we signed up for. It was something else, something buried under all the orders they told us to trust. We weren't supposed to intercept weapons. We were protecting data from a black file called Glasslight. Someone wanted it erased, permanently. So they sent us in blind, told us it was a routine op. The problem was, we weren't the only ones in that building. There were civilians, scientists. One of them told me before the blast they were working on cognitive pattern implants, real-time decision mapping for soldiers. It wasn't about weapons, it was about people, us. They called it the Perfect Operator Program. The explosion wasn't an attack, it was containment. They didn't want anyone knowing what was being tested or who was being tested. I think we were part of it, every one of us. If I made it out, it wasn't luck. It was because they wanted me to. Someone did. And if you're reading this, it means they're still watching. The words blurred for a moment as Vera's vision stung. She blinked hard, exhaling slowly. The tremor in her fingers steadied. Patricia took a cautious step closer. What does it say? Vera didn't answer right away. She kept reading. You once told me strength isn't about never breaking. It's about breaking clean so you can heal right. Well, this is me breaking. I don't know what they did to us or why, but if I'm still alive, it's because there's something unfinished. You were the best shot I ever saw, not because of your aim, but because you never missed what mattered. Find out who's behind it, not for me. For the others, for the ghosts. Thompson. When she finally looked up, Patricia's expression had changed. The soldier's calm had cracked just enough to let something human through. He knew, she whispered. He knew he was part of something bigger. Vera nodded faintly. He wasn't just a survivor, he was the key. Patricia leaned against the table. You think Glasslight was the project name for the same operation Alan mentioned? Not a coincidence, Vera murmured. Glasslight's the same word the director used when he approved my reactivation. It's not just an op, it's a loop. A loop. Vera looked up. They're restarting it. Patricia's face went pale. After what it did to your team. Especially after what it did, Vera said softly. They don't end programs like that. They just rename them. She rose from her chair, walking toward the window, though the glass was thick, and all she could see was her own reflection staring back. Think about it, she said. Cognitive pattern implants, real-time decision mapping, the perfect operator. And who's the first person they call when the trail goes cold? Me, the ghost. The one who won't question the mission, just finish it. Patricia's jaw tightened. You think they're using you? I think they've always been using me. The silence that followed was heavy, like a truth too old to stay buried. After a long pause, Patricia said quietly, so what do we do? Vera turned back, eyes steady now. We play along, for now. Find out who's pulling the strings, who revived Glasslight, who's hiding behind Keen's name. And if Thompson's alive, we find him first. Patricia nodded slowly. You'll need clearance, resources, a team. No, Vera interrupted. I'll need trust from you and from no one else. Patricia studied her for a long time. You've still got that look. What look? The one you had before every op went sideways, Patricia said. Like you already knew who wasn't coming home. Vera smiled faintly. Maybe I do. Later that night, she sat alone in the temporary quarters they'd assigned her, a small, windowless room that smelled of disinfectant and recycled air. The kind of place meant for rest but built for control. The letter lay open on the table beside her. The photograph rested atop it, 6 faces, frozen in the past. Her fingers traced Thompson's name scrawled on the back. She could almost hear his voice again, low and steady over the comms. You watch the wind, I'll watch your 6. The memory ached. She leaned back in the chair, closing her eyes. The flashbacks came uninvited, not images this time but sensations. The cold air of Prague seeping into her gloves. The weight of her rifle, the smell of gun oil. The echo of laughter, Thompson teasing her about the way she always double-checked her scope, even after calibration. Then the blast, that horrible, impossible sound, and the smell of burning paper and flesh. Her hands clenched. She opened her eyes. She wasn't in Prague anymore, but her body didn't know that. The door hissed open behind her. Patricia stepped in, holding a tablet. "Intel just came through," she said. "Thompson's location confirmed. The photo wasn't a one-off. He's been spotted again. Same market, same pattern, almost like." "He wants to be found," Vera finished. Patricia nodded. "Or he wants you to know he's alive." Vera's gaze darkened. "Then he knows we're coming." She stood, grabbed her jacket, and slipped the letter into her pocket. "How soon can we move?" "Dawn, transport's already on standby." "Good." Vera paused, glancing at the tablet in Patricia's hands. "Did the director approve it?" Patricia hesitated. "He doesn't know yet." Vera smiled faintly. "Then we might actually get there alive." As dawn bled into gray, Vera stood on the airstrip beside a waiting transport jet. The sky hung low, heavy with fog and secrets. A small crew waited nearby, nameless faces in unmarked uniforms. No chatter, no insignias, no questions, just readiness. Patricia approached with a dossier in hand. "Here's the team roster," she said. "You'll have support on site. They're calling it a recon assist. In and out, minimum visibility." Vera took the folder and flipped it open. Her eyes stopped at the last name on the list. Rodriguez Tyler. Her brow furrowed. "You brought him." "He insisted," Patricia said. "Said he owed you, and we could use his tech skills. Whatever Glasslight is now, it's digital as much as it's operational." Vera exhaled slowly. "He's not ready for this." Patricia's voice softened. "Neither were you the first time." That drew a faint, weary smile from Vera. "Fair point." She looked out at the fog beyond the tarmac. Somewhere, thousands of miles away, Thompson might be watching the same dawn or something darker. "Patricia," she said quietly, "you ever wonder what happens when we dig too deep?" "Every day," Patricia said, "but we dig anyway." Vera nodded. "Yeah, that's the curse of the ones who survive." She climbed the ramp, the metal echoing under her boots. Inside, the air was cold, humming with the energy of engines and unspoken purpose. She took a seat by the window, though all she could see was the reflection of her own face staring back. As the plane began to move, Patricia strapped in across from her. "You think he's waiting for you?" she asked. Vera looked down at her hands, steady now. "No," she said softly. "I think he's warning me." Patricia frowned. "Warning you of what?" Vera's gaze drifted back to the letter in her pocket. The last line burned through her mind. "They're still watching." She looked out at the clouds as the jet lifted off the ground. "I think," she whispered, "they never stopped." Why did Prague smell exactly the same after 25 years? The plane touched down in the gray hush before dawn, the city wrapped in mist and the faint sound of church bells. From above, it looked peaceful, a quilt of red roofs and narrow alleys, still half asleep. But Vera knew better. Peace was just the quiet between echoes. She stood at the bottom of the aircraft ramp, the cold air biting through her gloves. The old ache in her shoulder, the one she carried from Iraq, flared again. Patricia came down beside her, clipboard in hand, eyes scanning the perimeter. "Still looks the same," Patricia murmured. "Cities don't age," Vera said. "People do." Two unmarked SUVs waited on the tarmac. The drivers didn't speak. They handed over a sealed case, encrypted communications, shortwave comms, and a tablet showing Thompson's last known coordinates. A district near the Vltava River, Old Market, civilian zone, the same one from the photo. Vera climbed into the vehicle, Tyler already waiting inside. His eyes were tired but alert. There was fear behind them, the kind that comes from realizing you're inside a story too big to leave. "You didn't have to come," Vera said quietly. Tyler shook his head. "After what I found, I couldn't stay behind." She studied him for a moment, young, too idealistic, but there was something in his eyes she recognized, hunger for truth, even when it hurts. "Then listen," she said softly. "This isn't about being brave, it's about being aware. Fear keeps you alive." He nodded, "Yes, ma'am." Patricia smirked faintly from the front seat. "Careful, kid, she'll make a soldier out of you yet." Vera looked out the window as the convoy rolled through the wet cobblestones. The city was waking, faint lights glowing in windows, the smell of bread from unseen bakeries, trams rattling through intersections. To anyone else, it was beautiful. To her, it was an autopsy, streets that once led to screams, walls that once hid blood. The car stopped near the river. The old market looked ordinary now, stalls selling fruit, leather, cheap electronics. But beneath the noise, Vera felt it, the pulse of something colder, watched eyes, patterns that didn't belong. She stepped out, scanning the rooftops automatically, 3 vantage points, 2 exits, 1 safe angle. The old instincts slipped back like they'd never left. Patricia spoke quietly. "Our contact inside the cafe goes by Jerk, former Intel asset, owes me a favor." Vera nodded. "Then let's collect." The cafe smelled of burnt espresso and damp wood. Jerk sat near the window, mid-50s, hard eyes, the kind of man who'd learned trust was a currency too expensive to use often. He looked up as they approached. "Colonel Hawkins," he said in a thick accent, "you bring ghosts with you." "Just one," Patricia said, gesturing toward Vera. "She's looking for an old friend." Jerk's gaze shifted. When he recognized the name Vera Mitchell, his expression changed, a flicker of recognition, maybe fear. "You were in the Koslov fire." Vera nodded. "And I'm here because it didn't end." Jerk leaned forward. "Then you should leave while you can. Whatever's left of that project, it's not buried anymore. It's alive." Patricia frowned. "You mean Glasslight?" Jerk's eyes darted around the room. "Don't say that name here, they listen." "They?" Tyler asked. Jerk smirked without humor. "You think governments own their ghosts? No, they rent them." Vera's voice was calm but sharp. "Where?" "Thompson." Jerk hesitated, then reached into his coat, pulling out a small flash drive. "He came to me 3 days ago. Left this. Said if anyone asked for him, especially you, I was to give it to her. Then he disappeared." Patricia took it carefully. "What's on it?" He didn't say, but he looked scared. Not of being found, of being remembered. That sentence lingered. Vera reached into her pocket, pulled out a few folded bills and set them on the table. "For the coffee," she said. Jerk pushed them back. "For you, it's on the house, but if you're smart, you'll burn whatever's on that drive. Some things are too dangerous to know." Vera met his eyes. "And some things are too dangerous to forget." Back at the safe house, a cramped apartment 2 blocks away, Tyler sat at a laptop, the flash drive plugged in, his fingers flying. The screen filled with encrypted code, layers upon layers of hidden data. Patricia paced behind him, while Vera stood near the window, watching the city fade into twilight. "Can you crack it?" Patricia asked. "Maybe," Tyler muttered. "This isn't normal encryption. It's recursive. Every time I bypass a key, it rewrites itself." "Meaning?" "Meaning it doesn't want to be seen." Vera turned. "Keep going." Minutes passed in silence. The hum of the computer filled the air, broken only by the occasional click of keys. Then, suddenly, a flicker, a video file appeared, labeled simply GL0024. Tyler glanced at her. "Play it." Vera nodded. The screen turned black, then static, then a grainy image. A sterile room. White walls, two people seated at a table. One of them Thompson, younger, eyes sharp, defiant. The other, a man in uniform. Brigadier General Harlan Keene. Keene on video. You're not cooperating, Sergeant. Thompson, you're asking me to confirm something that doesn't exist. Keene, it exists because I say it does. Thompson, you can't erase people, sir. Keene, we can repurpose them. Thompson, you're turning soldiers into weapons. Keene, no, into perfection. The video glitched, then resumed, audio distorted. Keene, Glasslight isn't about control, it's about alignment. Imagine soldiers who never hesitate, who act without doubt, without question. We map their instincts, we remove conflict. Thompson, you remove humanity. Keene, humanity hesitates. Wars are lost in hesitation. The footage ended there, static dissolving into black. No one spoke for a long time. Finally, Patricia whispered, "He's alive." Vera nodded slowly, and still playing God. Tyler looked between them. Weight mapping instincts, removing conflict, that's mind control. Not quite, Vera said quietly. It's worse. It's conditioning, a soldier whose choices aren't his own, but he believes they are. Patricia ran a hand through her hair. Glasslight wasn't about intelligence gathering. It was about obedience. Vera looked back at the blank screen. And now it's been reactivated, which means someone building an army that never says no. Tyler swallowed, but why now? Vera's gaze hardened. Because the world's more chaotic than ever. Because power always looks for tools that don't question orders. And because men like Keene don't die, they replicate. She picked up the flash drive and slipped it into her jacket pocket. We need to find where this footage came from. If Thompson left it, he left a trail. Tyler checked the metadata. Encrypted origin weight looks like it was uploaded from a network under a company name. Promethean Systems. Patricia frowned. Never heard of it. Vera had. The name pulled at a thread in her memory. A logo she'd seen once on a prototype rifle during a government test run. They're a defense contractor, she said. Or at least they were. They went dark years ago. If Keene's alive, he's using them as cover. Tyler glanced at the screen again. There's an address embedded in the code. Not full, just coordinates. Where? Patricia asked. Tyler's voice was quiet. Outside the city, old industrial zone, same district as the Koslov warehouse. Vera's heart clenched. Of course it is. Patricia sighed. You think he rebuilt it? No, Vera said, her voice like steel. He never left it. Night fell hard. The SUV rolled through narrow back streets, headlights cutting through the fog. The coordinates led them to the outskirts, a stretch of factories long abandoned, their windows shattered, graffiti swallowing concrete. They stopped at the edge of a fenced compound. Beyond it, the shape of a warehouse. Same layout, same roofline, same silence. Patricia killed the lights. Thermal scan shows movement, maybe a dozen heat signatures inside. Security, Tyler asked. Or test subjects, Vera said quietly. They got out, boots sinking into damp earth. Vera adjusted her scope, eyes narrowing at the faint glint of light through a broken window. Inside, shapes moved, too synchronized, too uniform. Patricia, she whispered, they're not guarding it, they're being monitored. Patricia frowned. What do you mean? They're not reacting to sound, not checking perimeters. They're running patterns, timed loops, programmed. Tyler's voice shook, like drones. Vera's voice was a whisper. No, like soldiers who forgot how to be human. She raised her rifle, breath steadying as the tremor vanished, the world narrowing to the stillness she knew too well. Let's move, she said, quiet, no lights. They cut through the fence, the metal whining softly. The air inside the compound smelled like oil and rain and memory. Every step deeper felt like walking into her own past. Inside the warehouse, fluorescent lights flickered weakly. Rows of consoles lined the walls, and in the center, 10 soldiers standing motionless, eyes open but empty. A figure stood among them, lab coat, clipboard, headset. He turned when he heard the door. And for the first time in 25 years, Vera saw him. David Thompson. Alive. Older, tired, but unmistakably him. "Vera," he said softly, almost in disbelief, "you came." Vera lowered her rifle, her breath catching. "You're supposed to be dead." He smiled faintly. "So are they." He gestured to the motionless soldiers. "Glasslight didn't die in Prague, it evolved." Patricia stepped forward. "You're working for them." Thompson's smile faded. "No, I'm trying to stop them, but I can't from the outside, not anymore." Vera's voice trembled, not from weakness, but from the weight of years. "What have they done to you, David?" He looked at her, eyes haunted. "The same thing they did to all of us." Why did the air feel colder around him, as if truth itself had a temperature? Vera stood frozen, her breath visible in the dim light of the warehouse. Thompson's eyes looked the same, sharp, gray-blue, calm under pressure, but there was something else behind them now, something fractured, something that didn't belong to the man she remembered. "Don't move," Patricia warned quietly, weapon raised. Thompson didn't flinch. "If I wanted you dead, Colonel, you'd already be." Patricia hesitated. The way he said it wasn't arrogance, it was fact. Vera stepped closer slowly. "You're alive," she said softly, "all these years." "Alive," he cut in, "but not whole." His voice cracked on the last word. He turned slightly, glancing at the soldiers lined up behind him, motionless, eyes vacant, skin pale under the harsh lights. Vera's pulse quickened. "What did they do to them?" "What they did to us," he said quietly, "only better." The words hit her like shrapnel. Patricia lowered her gun slightly. "You mean Glasslight?" Thompson nodded. "You've seen the footage." "Yes," Vera said. "Keen, the interview, the talk about alignment, obedience." Thompson gave a humorless smile. "That was the theory. What you're looking at now," he gestured toward the soldiers, "is the result. Glasslight too." Tyler took a step closer, whispering, "They're not moving. Are they conscious?" Thompson looked at him for a long, pained moment. "They are, somewhere in there, but their choices aren't their own." The horror in his voice was real. It wasn't the voice of a villain. It was the voice of a man who'd watched something sacred collapse. Vera forced herself to breathe. "You said they did it to us. What do you mean?" Thompson turned back to her. "Do you ever wonder why you survived Prague?" Vera frowned. "Because you pulled me out, because you—" He shook his head. "Because they let you." The warehouse fell silent. Even the hum of machines seemed to fade. Thompson stepped closer. "You and I were test cases, the first phase. They wanted to see if command instincts, loyalty, decision under stress could be altered without breaking the subject. The blast wasn't sabotage. It was the trigger. The data burn wiped the experiment records, but it also activated the implants." Vera stared at him, uncomprehending. "Implants?" "Neural seeds," he said softly. "Microscopic, bioadaptive, inserted during what we thought were routine medical checks at Quantico. You remember the headaches, the fatigue, the sharp tremors after deployment." Her throat went dry. "That's impossible." "Is it?" he said. "Because I've seen your file, V. You weren't supposed to live long enough to notice." Patricia's voice trembled. "You're saying the tremor—" "Wasn't damage," Thompson finished. "It was feedback, a side effect. Every time you resisted the conditioning, your system glitched." Vera felt her knees weaken slightly. "You're lying." "I wish I were." She stumbled back a step, steadying herself against a rusted pillar. Her breath came shallow, uneven. Her mind replayed decades, every hesitation, every impossible call, every instinct she doubted, all the times her hand had shaken, her vision had blurred, her judgment had faltered. "How long?" she whispered. Since the day they pulled you out of that convoy, Thompson said. Since Keen's program was greenlit. Patricia swallowed hard. That's decades. Thompson nodded. Glasslight wasn't about creating new soldiers. It was about rewriting the old ones. Reconditioning veterans who questioned too much, turning them into living blueprints. Vera's jaw tightened. So we weren't training soldiers, we were manufacturing them. Thompson nodded slowly. Every sniper you trained, every protocol you wrote, it all fed back into the algorithm. You weren't their tool, Vera. You were their proof. The room blurred for a second. She blinked hard, gripping the pillar until her knuckles whitened. Patricia's voice broke the silence. Why tell her now? Because I need her to finish it, Thompson said. I escaped because I still had fragments of memory, fragments they couldn't erase. I've been trying to shut down what's left of the network, but I can't do it alone. Then why disappear for 20 years? Patricia asked sharply. Why hide while she thought you were dead? Thompson's voice softened. Because if I reached out, they'd find her. You think this place was built for research? No, it's a trap. The signal from this facility leads to every other node. The moment I transmit, they'll trace it. Vera exhaled slowly. Then we're already on borrowed time. He nodded. We always were. They walked deeper into the facility, past the still forms of the controlled soldiers. Tyler followed, his face pale as the truth settled in. Along the walls, screens flickered with biometric data, heart rates, brain patterns, neural loops. Every soldier had a digital signature, constantly shifting in sync with an unseen rhythm. And then Vera saw it. Her own name. Mitchell V. Baseline Model 1. She froze. The data feed showed her neural map, decades old, still active in the system. Every pattern, every pulse, every decision loop she'd ever made. Her heart hammered. That's me. Thompson nodded, shame in his eyes. You were their prototype, the one they couldn't perfect. Patricia whispered, so they just kept you running. Vera's voice was raw. All this time I thought I was fighting instinct, fighting trauma, but I was fighting them. Her hands trembled not from fear now but fury. All those missions, all those kills, they weren't just my choices, they were calculations. No, Thompson said firmly. They became your choices. You fought back, that's why you survived. You broke the loop. You were the first to prove it could be undone. Vera stared at him. You mean I'm still infected? Integrated, he corrected. But free, part of you still resists. That's why you shake. The words hit something deep, a memory of herself in a hospital bed, trembling while doctors said nerve trauma. A lie dressed as comfort. Tyler broke the silence. If they're still running the program, can't we just shut it down, destroy the data? Thompson looked at him with something close to pity. You think this is stored in one place? Glasslight was global before it went dark. The data is scattered across defense networks, black ops archives, even civilian tech companies. Then there's no way to stop it, Patricia said grimly. There is, Vera said, her voice steady now. We burn the source. Thompson turned, the neural base. She nodded. If my data's the original model, then killing the baseline deletes the pattern. Wipe me, wipe the map. Patricia's eyes widened. Vera, no. Vera didn't look at her. It's the only way. Thompson shook his head. You don't know what you're saying. The system's adaptive. You can't predict what it'll do. It might not just erase the data. It could rewrite everything connected to it. Then it ends with me, Vera said. No more soldiers, no more loops. Tyler stepped forward, desperate. You don't even know if it'll work. Vera's gaze was calm. I don't need to. I just need to make sure they never use me again. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Thompson said quietly, You haven't changed. You have, she said. He smiled faintly. Maybe that's the price of knowing too much. The alarms began to sound. Red lights pulsed along the walls. A voice echoed through the intercom, cold and artificial. Unauthorized activity detected. Facility lockdown initiated. Patricia swore, they traced us. Thompson grabbed a hard drive from the console. We can't let them have this data. If they replicate the baseline, it's over. Tyler yanked the laptop cable free. I'll extract what I can. Vera turned to Thompson. What's the fastest way out? He pointed toward a maintenance tunnel. South wall leads to the river, but once the lockdown completes, we're sealed. Then we move. They ran. The sound of boots, alarms, and distant mechanical whirring filled the air, the sound of a facility waking up. The soldiers they'd seen standing still now began to move, heads turning in perfect unison, eyes blank. David, Vera said, can they be stopped? He looked back, not anymore. They reached the tunnel just as steel doors began to slide shut behind them. Patricia fired, hitting the control panel, jamming the mechanism long enough for Tyler to squeeze through. Vera followed last, the flash drive clutched tight in her hand, the key to everything, the curse she'd never asked for. As they emerged by the river, the night exploded in light, the facility self-purging, erasing evidence, burying truth all over again. They ducked behind a low wall as shockwaves rippled through the air. The roar faded, then silence. Tyler gasped for breath. We barely made it. Vera stared at the burning warehouse, its reflection rippling across the black water. Barely's enough. Thompson looked at her, eyes weary, full of regret. You shouldn't have come back, V. She met his gaze. You shouldn't have stayed. He smiled sadly. Maybe I needed you to remind me why we fought. Vera didn't answer. She watched the fire consume the place that had held her past, her pain, her purpose, all rewritten into data. Patricia approached, voice low. The data you took, can it end it? Vera looked down at the flash drive in her hand. Maybe, or maybe it just teaches us how deep it goes. Thompson nodded. Either way, you hold the truth now. She looked at him, the man she'd once trusted with her life, the man who'd saved her, only to become the ghost she'd chased across decades. What will you do now? She asked. He smiled faintly. Disappear again, but this time by choice. And before she could stop him, he turned and walked into the smoke, vanishing into the dying light of the fire. Patricia stepped beside her. You could have stopped him. Vera shook her head. He's done enough running, we all have. She looked down at her trembling hands, steady now, still stained with the dust of a collapsing world. They wanted to make soldiers who never hesitated, she murmured. Instead, they made ghosts who can't rest. Patricia sighed. So what now? Vera turned toward the river. The city lights reflected across the water, fractured but still shining. Now, she said softly, we give the truth back to the people who forgot how to see it. Why did silence feel heavier than the explosion that came before it? The fire had burned itself out. Smoke still drifted along the river, curling through the gray dawn like the last breath of something ancient. Vera sat on the embankment, the flash drive clutched in her palm, small, unremarkable, yet heavy enough to tilt the balance of history. Patricia stood nearby, speaking quietly into a secure radio. Tyler was a few meters away, packing, hands trembling not from fear, but from the sheer weight of what they'd seen. The river reflected the rising sun in fractured streaks, light, broken but persistent. They'll come for us, Patricia said, lowering the radio. Alan's already sending extraction, but you know what that means. Containment, Vera murmured. They'll take the data, lock it away, reclassify the entire mission, erase every trace. Tyler turned sharply. Then we can't go with them if they get this. He pointed at the flash drive. They'll just start over. Vera looked at him, calm, tired. You think I don't know that? He hesitated. Then what do we do? Patricia walked closer, her voice low but firm. You've done enough, Vera. Let me handle this. I'll make sure it disappears permanently. Vera shook her head slowly. You won't be allowed to, not by them. You're still part of the system, I'm not. Vera. Patricia, she said quietly, you still believe in the institution. I stopped believing the moment I saw my name on that wall. Patricia's jaw tightened, but she didn't argue. There was no need. They both knew she was right. The world was changing around them, the sound of sirens in the distance. Military-grade, fast-moving. Whoever they were close. Vera looked down at the drive again, thumb tracing its edges, as if memorizing its shape. All this time, she whispered, I thought the shaking meant I was broken, but maybe it was the only part of me that refused to obey. Tyler crouched beside her. We can leak it, he said quickly. Upload the files, drop them in the open net. Let everyone see. If they try to silence us, it'll already be too late. Vera smiled faintly. You're young. You still think the truth protects itself. Then you do it, he insisted. You have the voice, people listen to you. The world already knows who you are. They know a symbol, she said. A story, not me, and symbols are easy to rewrite. Patricia stepped forward. So what are you saying? Vera looked up at both of them, her eyes steady, the morning light catching the silver in her hair. I'm saying maybe it's time I stop being part of the program, one way or another. They moved into an abandoned train yard near the edge of the district. The sirens faded behind them. The air was thick with the metallic smell of old iron and rain. Inside one of the rusted maintenance sheds, Vera set the flash drive on a table, connecting it to Tyler's laptop. A dozen windows opened instantly, code spilling like a living thing across the screen. This is the source index, Tyler said. It's tethered to a live satellite network, the remaining glasslight nodes. If you delete it here, it cascades. Total loss of data. The baseline collapses. Every active soldier gets disconnected. And what happens to me? Vera asked. Tyler hesitated. Your neural mapping's still in the system. If you trigger the wipe, the system will backtrace the source. It'll fry anything tied to your biometric code. It'll kill you. Vera nodded. Good. Patricia grabbed her arm. Don't do this. Vera turned, calm but resolute. You saw what they built. Those soldiers back there, they weren't people anymore. They were echoes. If this is how I stop it, then it's not dying. It's finishing. Patricia's voice trembled. You deserve more than to die in a shed. So did they, Vera said quietly. Every one of them. The wind pushed against the broken door, making it creak. Outside, dawn light spilled across the tracks, long golden lines stretching into the distance. Vera looked at Tyler. Start the sequence. He froze. I can't. Yes, you can. I won't, he said, shaking his head. You taught me better than that. Vera stared at him for a long moment, then smiled. Good, you're learning to disobey. She reached past him, typing in the commands herself. The screen flickered. Code streamed faster. A warning flashed across the monitor. Neural source identified. Baseline model detected. A voice filled the room, cold, synthetic, familiar. Vera Mitchell, Baseline 1, are you prepared to comply? The words froze everyone in place. It wasn't a voice from the computer. It was a voice from inside the system. Patricia's hand moved to her sidearm out of reflex. Tyler stepped back, wide-eyed. Vera stared at the screen, keen. The voice replied, calm, precise. Version fragment 2.3 of my operational archive, yes. You've returned to finish the loop. Loop over, Vera said. Incorrect. The loop continues as long as you exist. You are the equation, Vera. Every decision you make validates the data. Even defiance was accounted for. Then let's see how you account for freedom, she said, and hit enter. The system screamed. Lights flickered. The laptop's fan howled. Code exploded into streams of color, lines rewriting faster than comprehension. The screen turned white, then black, then showed her name again. MITCHELLV. Tyler shouted over the noise. It's rewriting your neural pattern. Disconnect. Too late, Vera said. It already knows me. Her eyes closed, the tremor in her hand vanishing completely. For a heartbeat, she looked utterly at peace. Patricia stepped forward. Vera. The screen pulsed once, then twice, then went still. And then slowly, text began to type itself. Alignment interrupted, source corruption detected, loop broken. The system died. Every light in the shed flickered out, the air went still. Only the sound of rain remained. For a long time, no one spoke. Patricia knelt beside Vera, who was slumped forward slightly, hands still resting on the laptop. Vera, she whispered. Her pulse was faint, but there. When her eyes opened, they were clear, steady. No tremor, no glitch. What happened? Tyler asked softly. Patricia exhaled. She did it, she broke it. Vera looked up slowly. No, she said weakly, we did. Patricia smiled, but there were tears in it. You scared the hell out of me. That makes us even. Vera sat back, leaning against the wall. The rain outside had softened into mist. For the first time in decades, her body felt still. Not perfect, not broken, just hers. Tyler stared at the dead laptop. It's gone, he said quietly. The entire network, no backups, it's over. Then we keep it that way, Vera said. No interviews, no documentaries, no glory. Patricia frowned. You could be remembered as the woman who stopped it all. Vera smiled faintly, or forgotten as the one who started it. Either way, it's done. Hours later, they stood on the hill overlooking the city. The sun had fully risen, spilling light across the rooftops and river, the same city that had once swallowed them both in smoke and betrayal. Now it looked clean again, almost innocent. Tyler turned to her. What will you do now? Vera thought for a moment, eyes on the horizon. Maybe I'll find a quiet range, teach kids how to breathe before they shoot, how to respect the pause. Patricia smiled. You think you can ever live normal again? Normal's overrated, Vera said. Peace is enough. Tyler looked at her hands, the tremors gone. She flexed her fingers slowly, almost surprised. Guess it wasn't weakness after all. What was it then? Patricia asked. She looked at them both, her oldest friend and the youngest soldier, and said softly, proof I could still fight back. They stood in silence, watching the morning unfold. A news drone buzzed faintly in the distance, its camera panning over the burned warehouse site. Somewhere far below, people were already talking, speculating, recording, rewriting. But none of that mattered now. Vera turned to Patricia. Promise me something. Anything. If they ever try to rebuild it, if anyone whispers that word again, stop them, before it starts. Patricia nodded. I swear it. Vera exhaled. Good, then I can finally rest. She turned, starting down the hill. Each step was slower, lighter, more certain, like a soldier walking home after too many wars. The world didn't need to remember her name. Only the lesson she'd left behind. That night, Vera sat alone by the river, the same river that had once carried the reflection of fire. Now it carried the moon. She took the letter from her pocket, Thompson's, and unfolded it one last time. The paper was worn, the ink fading, but the final line still burned as bright as the first day she'd read it. Find out who's behind it, V, not for me, for the ghosts. She smiled faintly. I did, David, and I let them rest. A breeze passed, gentle, almost kind. The letter slipped from her fingers, floating into the water, where it drifted downstream, carried away into the dark. Vera watched it go. Then she whispered to the night, sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts. Her reflection trembled in the current, not from weakness, but from life. And as dawn began to rise again over Prague, Phantom Mother finally disappeared into legend, not as a weapon, not as a story, but as a woman who chose to be free.